Worthy of the Jersey, hosted by Eric Flannery and Tim Smith.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Worthy of the Jersey. I am Eric Flannery along with Tim Smith. Today is April 28th, 2020. And once again, we are honored to be joined by two of Max Prep's top 100 coaches in the United States of America, regardless of sport. Now, the only reason I'm bringing that up is because, yes, I am jealous that I'm nowhere near the top 100. But I just wanted to just say well-deserved and congratulations to both you, Sharm, and to you, Mike. That's
Thank you.
Good honor.
Well, first of all, the reason why we're on this because we answered the email with our credit card information.
Don't be so humble. I mean, obviously, well-deserved. It is one of those things. I know, knowing both of you well, you're pretty humble about it. But it is sometimes nice just to be recognized for some of the stuff that you have accomplished and you have done. So, congratulations again. Is that it just to kind of? I don't want to get into it too much, but did they like reach out to you, tell you this, or is it kind of a surprise when you saw the list?
Yeah,
I had no idea knowing.
If somebody tagged me on Twitter and I clicked on it.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I knew.
That's a good surprise.
That's how people get viruses on their computers and phones, guys. So you know.
By the way,
it's a good surprise, but well-deserved. And I just had to do that at the beginning of the show so people really know who we are talking to. You know, we're not just making this stuff up. We got two great guys and great coaches. So I want to get in real quick too, Mike. I saw this on Twitter. Promote your show. Like, what is?
Oh, man.
Is it called Basketball County?
Yes.
And it's on Showtime?
It's not mine.
No,
it's
no.
not mine. So, I mean, it's amazing how that kind of came together. There's a guy named John Beckham who I don't know whose idea it originally was, but John Beckham, who's got a connection to one of my former assistant coaches. Back in either 2014 or 2015, they came to the school. We sat down and they just told me what they wanted to do. And so it's called Basketball County. It's going to be May 15th. I think it's a Friday night on Showtime at either 8 or 9 p.m. And it's about Prince George's County, which is where I live, where I grew up, where I was born, where DeMatha is. But there's a ton of NBA guys that were born and raised in Prince George's County. So it's called Basketball County in the Water. Executive produced by Kevin Durant, his 35 Ventures media company. I guess John Beckham and Jimmy Jenkins took the idea to them. They funded the whole thing. So Kevin Durant, Victor Oladipo, Quinn Cook are all executive producers. And I'm excited about it because I know, I mean, it's 5 years later, 6 years later, they put a lot of work into it. So I cannot wait.
So is this like a basketball season that they kind of go through, or is it just kind of like a documentary following all these guys' career for the last 5 or 6 years?
I think that's a good question.
Yeah, I don't.
It's a documentary, and I understand the concept to be like, you know, I guess 3 out of every 10,000 or 100,000 kids make it to the NBA from high school, but in this county, that number is much greater, or the ultimate number is much lower, you know, whichever way you want to go with it. So that is what it's about. Like, what is the basketball culture here that allows for the demographic to be so widely successful in getting guys to the NBA?
And is it a one-night show, or is this like a lasting thing? Is this just one episode?
No, I'm pretty sure it's just one night. It's going to be, I don't know how, I mean, they've got tons of footage. I know they got a lot of people involved in getting, you know, historical footage. I know they've got DeMatha beating Powell Memorial back in the 50s when Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played for Powell Memorial. They've got footage from that, and then all the way through last year.
Wow. Now, let's be honest. How long are you in it?
I haven't seen it.
So you have no idea. You can
preview.
So I actually sent, so one of my buddies who I kind of hooked up with, John, because He's a historical DC area basketball guy. He has a ton of video. So I hooked John up with him to get video from him.
Mhm.
So they actually his name is Mark. They let Mark see it. And so Mark was like, hey, man, I just watched it. It's really good. You're in it, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, all right, so like, am I coming to your house to watch this? Or like, are you sitting? And so he was like, well, my link expired. Like they basically wanted me to watch it once and then it basically destroys itself. He said, but reach out to John. So I did. And John basically was like, yeah, Friday, May 15th, Showtime. He was like, we only let the guys that provided the video see it just so they could see their part. And like, he just wants everybody to see it at the same time. So I was a little disappointed in that answer, but hey, I told my wife we're going to do the whole red carpet thing, even if it's in my living room. Like I'm getting dressed up,
Right.
take a couple photos.
That's awesome, man. I got Showtime at least, so I know I got it marked
Me
down.
too. Recording that.
We're gonna be live. We're gonna be live tweeting you. We're gonna be.
Hey, man, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Like, and again, I could be in it for 3 seconds. I don't really care.
Right.
Just the historical. There's a lot of DeMatha stuff. Even in the trailer, there's so much DeMatha in the trailer that I mean, I just can only imagine how significant our portion is in the actual project.
I don't want to get into too much of just Mike Jones, but what is the culture in DC? Is there a simple answer, or is that just something that you think has kind of been created organically through these great players?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that I mean, you can go a lot of different ways. You can go socioeconomics, you can go race, you can go, crime, and basically, I mean, there's so many different ways to it. I do not believe there's a simple answer to it. We are the most affluent county in the country for African American families. But what does that mean in today's society? I mean, there's so many blended races and things like that. But, basically starting sometime in the late 70s, early 80s, our county became like the place to be for African Americans to move to, DC area, that whole thing. And it kind of just took off from there. Crime pushed everybody into rec centers and organized basketball. So you're not just out on the playground playing, but you're actually around people that are trying to teach you. I think that has something to do with it. And then just the competitiveness of just our kids, which I'm sure Cleveland's got, their attributes in competition is one of them. Atlanta's got theirs. And so Chicago, New York, LA, Houston, like all over the country. But our guys really compete. So
That's really good stuff. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be fun. Sharm, non-basketball question. They opened up everything in Georgia. How you feeling?
Oh man, it's so kind of surreal because I mean, you got people actually out there, getting haircuts, and it's not like massive crowds or anything like that, but you can tell the city's kind of like taking on this approach of like opening back up, literally. The restaurants open up Monday. It's not a lot of traffic from what I'm hearing, but they are open. The malls will open up Friday. With a lot of restrictions, but they will be open. So I don't know if this thing is gonna backfire on us, man. And we're set back, a couple months, and everybody else is moving forward. That's my biggest concern. But I did see where Ohio is kind of like following our lead a little bit. I did see that this morning. They're gonna start.
Yeah, not really. Our governor's been pretty. He was one of the first to shut down, and he is the only thing he opened up, and they call it an opening, is he let people go to the doctors now if you have to go to the doctor. That's it.
Yeah, I did see that.
And then like in 2 weeks from now, they're going to start opening up like some retail and stuff like that. And he's doing it, I probably the right way. But I mean, we can argue that all day. I mean, I think after listening to General Dempsey last week on our conference call, the one thing I took away from that, and it's the one thing that I've kind of believed with this thing, is the fear that's out there. is greater than anything else that's out there, right? I mean, like, we're just afraid to do. I mean, this thing's real. It's a problem, but I think we are so afraid to do anything, that it's really, really making us really cautious. And I think once people start, like in Atlanta, if 2 weeks go by and everybody's probably good, or there hasn't been a big increase, then it's going to be more and more. And eventually, I'm hoping that you guys are like ahead of the curve, like,
yeah. I mean, I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah.
It's just, the thought of just having to redo this in 2 months is just not, the best thing I could be thinking of right now. So
I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm ready to let my kids play in traffic, so I'm about to fear is not something.
There's a lot of that going on. I think there's a lot of that going on. So 2 episodes ago, as you guys know, we had the Lost episode, and Tim had a couple, I think, questions that we had discussed, or topics that we had discussed in that episode that he thought were really good that he wanted to bring up. So Tim, I don't know if you want to kind of start that.
Yeah, well, let's. I do, and appreciate it. There's the 2 main topics, and we'll see how long this takes, and then we can go from there. But we had a couple questions about, I guess, traits or attributes that make incoming players stick out, and it said directly. The questions were directed towards freshmen, and it might be helpful. I don't know, if you guys have different numbers that you deal with as far as incoming freshmen, how many teams. We've talked about on this podcast before at St. Ed's, we have 2 13-player, essentially freshman teams. Coach Flannery can correct me, but I think we typically get somewhere between 50 and 70 kids, let's say, that try out for those 2 teams. And then we also might have, a handful, which can be anywhere from 1 to maybe 3 or 4 kids that'll play up on varsity or JV in a given year. So you're talking a pool of maybe 50 to 75 kids for 26 to 30 spots, let's say, across the program. So I don't know if you guys deal with similar numbers, but, beyond that, a kid, and I would say too, especially a kid that maybe you don't know as well, when you get them into school and through your start to play in your program through open gyms in the fall and those kind of things, and then into tryouts, the question was asked both ways. What makes people stand out for the good, and what makes players stand out for the bad? So, Coach White, why don't you lead us off there and talk about kind of your process and then what you see?
Well, with incoming freshmen, I think, of course, you might have some kids that are talented that, might be, uber talented, and, that's just who they are. But, for me, I watch a couple things. I pay attention to their knowledge of the game, even if it's at a young level, like an incoming freshman. I watch for their knowledge of the game and being teachable and things of that nature. But probably the most important thing, besides knowing how to play or trying to see if they know how to play some, is knowing how to play in the realm of effort. Having a motor, playing with a high level of intensity, because if you can do that, if you because that's a skill within itself, I believe. And if you come in with the ability to be able to play hard, the teaching part for me is not that the curve is very small. I can make that, we can make the connection there. But I think one of the biggest things that I see with a lot of them, they don't understand the level they have to compete at, especially coming from, like I said, an incoming freshman, for example, coming from playing against middle school kids to now you're basically playing with grown men almost. And, the ones that can come in with a high level of intensity, or at least with the effort of a high level of intensity, they're ones that, they tend to get there a little sooner than the other ones because of that. And so that's what I kind of look at, I pay attention to.
You said something interesting, and I say it a lot, and, like kids that know how to play. And that's a thing that I think is very meaningful. And I think as coaches, we kind of understand maybe what that means. But, and this is maybe an unfair question, but can you describe a little bit like what that means when you see a kid and you go, well, that kid knows how to play?
Yeah, I mean, you can just watch them even in something as simple as open gym, are they making cuts? Are they, moving without the basketball? Do they, know how to, somewhat know how to use the screen effectively? Are they talking? Are they communicating? Are they doing just the little things that we look for that we, if it's something less that we have to teach, it makes our job just a little bit more, a little less challenging. Because if you got a kid that knows how to do certain things, knows how to make certain cuts, knows how to move without the ball, or at least has the inclination to do those things, again, it just makes our job a little bit more easier. And you can also groom that kid a little bit further along a little quicker than you normally would. So I just, I use those things as an example, but it can be a wide array of things.
Right.
I mean, it just depends on you as the coach.
Yeah, it's interesting because basketball is such a game of fluidity and movement, right? And especially at the younger levels, because and I deal this a little bit with my kids, is you'll try to teach a kid by telling them, go to this spot, right? Like, go stand in the corner, go to the hoop. And so we're almost teaching kids to be station to station in a game that's supposed to have natural movement and natural fluidity. So sometimes you see some of that, kind of elevate or permeate to the kids that we get. Coach Jones, how about DeMatha? How do you guys handle the incoming classes?
I just want to piggyback on what Sean said. So I think one of the things that stands out to me, and you don't have to be good at it. You just have to understand it, to me. So one thing is, like, are you in the way? Like, are you in the way? Like, we do a skit on Monday afternoon every week of camp we have. And I get my coaches and we emulate what they look like in their games, where one person has the ball and he's dribbling the air out of it, and the other four guys are running up to him with their hands up like, pass me the ball, pass me the ball. And we show them how foolish it looks because everybody just wants the basketball. So I think one of the biggest indications early on in terms of an IQ or knowing how to play is, are you in the way? And if you're in the way, that's fine, but do you understand that you're in the way? And if you understand that you're in the way, that's something that can be taught. So, and then to kind of morph that into my answer, I think the biggest thing for us, especially with freshmen, they're not finished products. Do they think they are? Do they think they know it all? Are they coachable? Do they want to get better? Do they want to put the work in? If you couple that with the competitiveness that Coach Sharman just talked about, you got a chance. And then a lot of it is going to be just, whether you're blessed by God to grow and things like that. But I think first and foremost, are you a willing learner and are you going to compete? Those two attributes, I think, are invaluable.
Yeah, those both were really good. And I just to piggyback on that too, because I think one of the reasons why we got these questions were from people that work with younger kids, and they're trying to, I think, teach these kids what high school coaches are looking for, and that they can kind of say, all right, this is what we want. This is what we're going to work on. Because I think Nick Kinzel is one of the guys who sent in a question, and he's a former player of ours, and I know he works with younger kids now. You guys have made great points, and I think one of the problems with kids today is that, though, too, is that they work with individual guys who are working on, just their ball handling and just their shooting, and they're not working on playing away from the basketball. They're not working on what Mike talked about, is spacing and guys coming and calling for the basketball. So if you can teach kids today to play with other guys and getting back to understanding the game and what does that mean? Well, like Sharm said, do you know how to cut? Do you know how to read a screen? Can you set your man up to get open? Can you create a shot without, with the ball and then without the ball? And so much of what I see with guys that work people out is, hey, let's get up, 500 shots, but are they really game shots? And two, you see all these crazy drills of using cones and ladders and things like that. And how much does that actually incorporate into understanding how to play? Now, we all agree, and the first thing is, if a kid comes in and he's 6'6" and 6'7", we're going to work, we're going to work our tails off with you. And we're going to try to develop you. If a kid comes in and he's extremely talented, if he doesn't know how to play, we're going to do our best to teach him how to play. But the average player is not one of those two things necessarily. So How do you get involved into our program? You know, you have to work your tail off. Be the first guy in the gym, the last guy out of the gym. Be somebody that's willing to sacrifice scoring points and play harder than everybody else and understand how to play. If we see those things as coaches, that, you know, that's what we're looking for. You know, what do you do when you don't have the ball? You know, that's one of the greatest things in open gym, to watch people play. How do you communicate to your teammates? You know, are you a leader? Do you talk? So many kids today play with their mouth shut, right? And it's invaluable to teach a kid to talk. Invaluable, you know, and especially, you know, not only talk, but the second thing is to say the right things, right? You know, we talk about that all the time. It's great to talk, but now you got to understand what it is that you're saying. So little things like that. If I'm working with 7th grader, 6th grader, 8th grader, my goal is going to be, yeah, I'm going to keep working on your skills. Yeah, we want to get a lot of shots up. We want to work on ball handling, but can I teach this kid to play without the basketball, to understand why he's doing what it is that he's doing? You know, why are we taking 500 shots, you know, and from where? You know, if I'm 5'10", you know, I'm going to have to learn to score going to the basket different ways rather than just shooting, you know, 50 layups. You know, it's and the last thing I'll say is this: is don't ever forget about just fundamental, being basic, right? Work on your feet. You know, if you can make a layup and you can make a free throw and you can knock down an open shot, there's probably a place for you, you know, despite everything else. So pretty good question.
If you can do those things, they're going to have a huge advocate in me in our program anyway.
Yeah, right.
The other thing I would add too is that I think, especially in the last 5-6 years, is body language. And that maybe goes hand in hand with effort. But I think that's something, and even communication, but it's so easy to see a kid get discouraged, to see head goes down, to see shoulders slumped. And I would say to anybody that's working with kids that should be something that you're working on as early as possible. Is, you know, how to react to adversity within a game. How do you keep, you know, your mental approach in the right direction, and body language kind of follows that. And I think that and communication is like things that are constant areas for improvement, particularly in our team, because you see it go up and down, especially with kids of that age.
Well, Tim, maybe we can follow that too, because Colin Crooks had a question that was the opposite of that. So Mike and Shar maybe just address this, and it's pretty much the same question. But what are things that, or traits a kid may have, either in your program or trying to be a part of your program, that would make you not want to coach him or not want to have him, or would basically hurt his chances of playing for DeMatha or Pace? What types of traits are you looking for that way?
Well,
Mike, yeah.
Tim just said, I mean, the body language thing, you know, the attitude, the lack of effort, you know, the blaming, you know, if nothing is your fault, if you're a bad teammate, you know, you throw a guy a nice pass and he drops it, what's your reaction? You got fouled and it didn't get called, what's your reaction? You know, things like that. So I look at, you know, the body language, what guys are doing in terms of that. But I also think, like, you don't just shut a guy out, though. I mean, they're you know, when we get kids, they're 13 years old, and yeah, they don't know. Like, I mean, you've been able to do this, and no one's ever corrected you. Like, okay, so I'm going to correct you, and if I see there is a correct response or some development over the course of a couple of days, then that's something we can work with. You know, that's the one thing. And then the other part, and I cringe when I say this because I know this can go 50 million different ways, but just the parent involvement. And, you know, I'm blessed because I've got some great parents. But if your kid is in tryouts and he is looking over the coach's shoulder into the stands at his dad or his mom because they're trying to give him instruction, that's going to wind up being a problem at some point. And it's not good. It doesn't help the player at all. You know, we as coaches, we all have, you know, nuances that, you know, I will never do this, or I swear to you, I will never. But like, that's one thing that I don't know of a coach that welcomes that. So, you know, as far as parents out there, like, just let your kid be coached. And if you're not comfortable with the way your kid is being coached, then you should have them playing for somebody else, or start your own team. I mean, and you coach them. So.
I think what Mike said is great. I mean, the thing about it, you know, you definitely, kids that are not, you know, teachable, they're not coachable, they send off a red flag quick. I think the other thing for me is, you know, kids that you know, that might have the talent but don't work hard. That's you know, and again, like Mike said, we do have to teach them, and so I think that's where you learn about kids and their teachability and their coachability through things like that. But you know, all of us as coaches, we rather have guys. We favor guys that, no matter how talented they are, if they play hard and work hard, you know, those guys are gonna have a special place with us, and they're gonna, you know, we're gonna always see, in a way, we're gonna try to develop and try to help them as much as we can, because, you know, again, you know, we know we got to have talent to be successful in most cases, but, you know, you want kids that buy and fit into the culture of what you're trying to do. And I think if you're trying to build a culture of, you know, hard work, and we talked about, you know, culture is you know, what you do, or, you know, what you do every day. You know, those things are going to come up, you know, sooner than later, if you don't have guys that, you know, buy into that, or that, you know, that don't want to work hard, even though with all the talent. So, again, it can be a wide array of things. And I think one more thing, you know, and I agree with Mike about the parent thing. And I've been fortunate enough to have, you know, great parents as well. But, you know, just their ability to not be distracted, so to speak, because there's so many things out there that can distract them. You know, you're talking about AAU coaches, you're talking about people that have been with them forever. You know, it could be anything. I mean, and not to, you know, knock any of those things, but just, will those things distract you when you walk through that door to come in, to punch in the clock to go to work that day in the gym, you know? And you know, you can tell it by some kids, and some kids you can, but I mean, at the end of the day, you want that to be a serene place for them to be able to come in and get the work in, and be able to be coached and be able to be taught, and just, you know, make their game evolve. So I would say that.
I want to follow up real quick on, and take us a little different angle, and I'll start with Eric. But something that kind of came to my mind as you guys were talking is, what do you do as a coach to foster enthusiasm in your teams? And is it any different between USA basketball and our high school team? So I was thinking of one, you know, you watch a college team, and almost every college team now, they've got their bench mob, right? And the kids are going crazy and stuff like that. And we've kind of gone back and forth with some of that. We'll have some years where we'll kind of be really enthusiastic, you know, 1 to 15, they'll really get into it. And then we have other years, this year I'd include, where we're maybe a little bit more subdued as a group. So I think, you know, some of it is the group itself, but I think in high school, maybe it's still kind of not cool to be like a cheerleader from the bench. Maybe there's some other issues you're dealing with. So I'm curious how you guys sort of approach, you know, fostering enthusiasm within your culture, and how you see it sort of manifest itself. So I'll let Eric kick that one off.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I actually want to get back to talking about parents at some point too, because I think that's another great topic.
I'm trying to keep you away from that one.
I got a lot of opinions on that. Here's fostering enthusiasm in my mind, and it's a lot of what Sharman Mike, I think, have talked about in the past as well. It's kind of what you tolerate as a coach, and what you preach as a coach. And I think Coach Showalter had said, which I'm sure he's heard from somewhere else, like, players don't have bad practices, coaches do. What you allow, and this is right in the enthusiasm category, and what you expect and what you create from your team is what you're going to get out of it. And I agree 100% that sometimes the certain group that you have may not be as enthusiastic, or may not be into it as much, or have that personality. But I think you as a coach, if that's something that you really cherish, and it's part of your culture that we talk about, you have to create that as often as you can, and as much as you can, and what you accept. So, you know, we talk about it quite a bit. We've shared before that similar to USA basketball and something that we do at St. Ed's is the meetings before practice and the mind candy and trying to get kids to understand what their role is and how important it is to be a great teammate. And part of that is showing energy, and part of that is supporting your teammate, whether that's on the bench during the game or whether that's in practice. So if you're sitting there as a coach running practice and the practice is dead, are you allowing that to happen? Or are you kind of getting on your guys to simply start clapping, start cheering, start doing whatever it is that you want? Coach Jones does a great job of that, I think, in our USA practices. We get the guys with their arms, kind of locked in when a coach is talking at half court, when the rest of the team is demonstrating. He's got guys making sure that they're clapping when they're in line, when they're not, in the drill. Communication's really important. So guys talking when they're in the drill, and that's, something that you can, as a head coach, assign your assistant coaches. Like, are you walking up to your players who are not in a drill, and are you talking to them and asking them questions about what's going on? So all of that fosters, I think, enthusiasm and communication. And, the last thing I'll say on that, because I have more, but I'll give it to the other guys, is, just be positive with your guys. I think when they feel like they're a part of it and they feel comfortable and excited, then they become more comfortable. They become more excited about what it is that you're doing. So I think you just got to foster that as much as you can as a coach.
I say it starts with you and your coaches when you fostering enthusiasm. I think if they see it from the top, and like Eric was just saying, I try to make sure that my assistant coaches are very involved. I know when we go to USA mini camps, training camps, as a coaching staff, that's one thing that we always stress is, we have to show that passion. Coach Showalter always says, that passion is what fuels the fire a lot of time within kids. They see us excited and see us, ready for practice, ready to go, and we're very boisterous in our commands and our calls and what have you. It just kind of rubs off. I also think that having a competitive setting fosters enthusiasm too, because you got guys that might win, you got guys that might lose, and everybody might not win, but it's all that energy that you can corral into making your team fall. Because once we get we might be blue and white Monday through Thursday, but on Friday we're going to be all blue. And if we're all blue, now that whole week of competing, and now we're cheering for each other, because I was in a battle with that guy Monday through Thursday. And so I think that being able to have that competitive setting helps foster it as well.
So for us, it's funny that you asked this question. So this past season, for the first time ever, we had a guy come in, a sports psychologist, come in and work with, the 10 guys we pretty much knew were going to be the core of our team this year, like before tryouts or anything like that. But they were all returners from the previous season. So we pretty much knew they would be involved in the program. And he went through, 3 8-hour sessions. Like literally, we went on a Friday evening after school from 3 o'clock to 11 p.m. in our gym with him. And then we met again on 2 weekends, 8 hours apiece. And one of the things that he did, Dr. Joe Carr, it's called the Level 5 training. He's done it with Notre Dame. He's done it with the Boston Celtics. He's done it. And so he's a family friend of mine. And to show you how good he is, like he was a sports psychologist for me when I was a player at DeMatha, and I had no idea that that's what he was doing. Like he was in my head, and I didn't know he was in my head, so to speak. But he worked with our guys this year, and one drill he had us do, and it's unbelievable what it did for our guys. We had 10 guys. They all started on the baseline, and he put 8 minutes on the clock. And they were going to walk from end to end. They were just going to keep going back and forth from end to end. And they had to, what he calls level 5, you had to, as loud as you possibly can be, for 8 straight minutes, say anything that you would say during a basketball game. whether it's calling out a defensive coverage, whether it's calling a play, whether it's encouraging a teammate, whether it's just like any chatter you would have, but you got to yell it. Like, and all 10 of them have to yell it. Like, so, I mean, it's 10 voices just randomly saying, you know, black, switch, you know, hey, I got it. Hey, pass the ball. Hey, I'm open. Hey, we're going to run two here. Hey, coach, I need a sub, like whatever it is. And at any point in time in that 8 minutes, if the level 5 goes down, to which he would call a level 4, level 3, level 2, he'd stop, put 8 minutes back on the clock, put him back on the baseline, and have him start all over again. And to watch my guys go through that and the frustration that they had when they had to start over, but also to understand that, like, yes, I'm yelling down here, and before he notices you not yelling, I'm going to say something to you, but like, yo, your voice level is dropping, you got to pick it up. And to watch our seniors like move in the line. So I'm on one end, but I noticed that my sophomore that's on the other end is not doing it. So instead of me just going and saying something, I walk down there and get beside him and get him. Like, it encouraged so much. It encouraged them to go through something that became a little bit of adversity for us, but also that enthusiasm. So at any point in time during the season, when I said level 5 to the guys, they knew exactly what I meant. They knew they weren't giving the effort at the level that it needed to be, and they ratcheted it up a little bit. And Dr. Joe Carr was amazing for us, and gave us a tool, equipped me to be able to just say 2 words, level 5, and get the reaction that I wanted to from my guys.
Nice.
So how long did it take to get through the 8 minutes?
If I remember correctly, so the other cool thing, so if I remember correctly, they had to start over 3 times.
Okay.
But so everything he did with our players, he also did with my staff, which was hilarious. So we had to do the exact same thing. The only thing that I would have preferred, I would have liked to have done that in front of our players. Like, we didn't do it in front of our players. I would have liked for them to have seen us go through getting mad at each other because, hey, we got to start over because you weren't talking and things like that. But I mean, it was fun. So, yeah, they only had to start over, if I remember correctly, 3 times. One time it got to, like, it was, 20-something seconds left on the clock. So they were that close to being done. Wow. And then they had to start over.
How many times did the coaches have to restart?
It was probably by design.
Yeah. How many stops did your staff have?
Just once.
Okay.
Just once. But
8 minutes.
Again, it was pretty late into the clock though. So, and yeah, we weren't happy with.
And that guy is no longer working at DeMatha High School.
I was actually one of my best coaches, one of my best guys. So,
Mike, I remember you actually talking about that and some other things that guy did for your team this year, which is pretty impressive, and probably just another reason why DeMatha is so good, because you're looking outside the box for things that you can bring in to help your team be successful, and the majority of those things probably are not necessarily basketball related, right?
It was intense.
Yeah.
It was intense. I mean, you talk about the full gamut of emotions. Like, you're in a group, you're laughing, you're joking. You're in a group, you get guys to cry. You get guys to cry that makes other guys cry. Like, I mean, it really became a true bonding experience for us. And our success this season, like, I don't know if we're as accomplished as we were this season without that.
Is that something you're going to do again? Make it part of your annual thing, or?
See, I don't know, because honestly, it's going to be up to Dr. Carr, and it's going to be him telling me, like, he's got more tricks in his bag, so to speak, but is it too much? I mean, because we'll have 10 returners next year.
So they've been through it already.
Like, yeah, and so will it be as effective? Or is there a different protocol we can go through that will be as effective, but it'll be new for everybody? So I'm actually going to leave that to him. He's definitely going to have influence on our team next year and for years to come. But will we go through that intense training again? I'm not sure.
that's a great coaching point too, Mike, though, that what works for you may not work for everybody else. And just because it worked with one team or just because you did it last year doesn't mean you have to do it again this year. Or, you got to get a feel for your guys and a feel for your team for what it is that they might need to push them or take them to another level. And I think that's what makes good coaches great coaches. Just trying to find that whatever that it is that's going to help your team this year to be as successful as it possibly can. Sharm, I don't know if out of the top of your head, have you done anything similar, some type of team bonding thing that has helped your team along the way that you feel?
Yeah, like we've done the yoga thing. That was new for me. I tried some different things, but I tried the yoga thing, and it worked really, really well. The kids, seemed for some reason, they when they went to yoga, they were kind of excited. And I had a really good yoga instructor. She was very cerebral, meaning she was, trying to challenge them mentally. So the guys look forward to that every week. And, one thing that, it might sound small, but I'm telling you something that really helped us from that standpoint was communication circle. Like at the end of practice to be able to hear guys, because I would I would go, way off sometimes. It might not even have anything to do with basketball. And the responses you get and how guys react to the responses is priceless. I mean, you find out a lot about the kids, and then they find out about each other, and then it makes them, respect each other even better, or it makes them understand, why they playing for their teammates, even more. And so, like, I think one of the questions I asked, just, off the top of my head, name something that, that adverse that happened in your life that you had to, battle from, and you start hearing these different things, and you're not trying to bring up all kind of negative stuff or whatever, but you want to know what kids have been through, and you want their teammates to know what they've been through so that they can kind of get a better understanding of each other, and so, when you're so quick to respond or quick to, say something to a teammate about something, now you understand why they are the way they are, or why, what could it, that could be attributed to. So I know it's simple, but we got so much out of communication circle this year. It was unreal. And I think it led us into the next practice, believe it or not. The next practice, you could see how it might have, made things just a little bit better, going into that next practice as we ended that practice, the prior practice.
And so people that are either watching or listening to this too, we've used communication circle before with USA basketball. And just to explain it real quick is just guys after practice, before practice, whenever it may be, you just put them in a circle, and typically they may hold hands, lock arms, whatever it is. And like Coach Sharm said, you give them a topic, a question. It could be something as simple as what's your favorite movie, right? Or whatever. Or you can get into in-depth questions like Coach Sharm did. And they just turn to the guy to their right and they share that information. And they pass it along the circle till it gets back to the original guy. And you learn something new about your teammate, maybe something that you wouldn't have known during, the course of the season. 2, it gets them talking. And 3, like Sharm said, you really start finding out maybe some other information that we as coaches probably typically didn't have, and it's an easy, quick way to do it where I think it may make the guys a little bit uncomfortable. We talk about getting out of your comfort zone,
right?
But once they do it more and more, they start getting a little bit more comfortable and they have fun with it sometimes. And it's just another way to kind of build that camaraderie that we're looking for as coaches. So good stuff there by both of you. Great stuff. Tim, you got something else we want to get into?
Yeah, I'm glad I asked the last one. Coach mentioned we talked about this, I think, on the infamous Lost podcast, but I thought it was a good conversation, so I thought it was worth revisiting. Your guys' perspective on recruiting, and we could stay more general or get specific, but sort of a couple things is, how do you guys try to help your players through that process? And you can rehash if you like some of the points we made 2 weeks ago, that's great, or stuff that maybe we didn't even think of then. And Coach White, I thought your perspective was great too about, spending a couple years on the college side and coming back to high school and kind of what that taught you. So why don't you kick us off on this one as far as, you know, how you help your kids through the recruiting process now? You know, what maybe works well and what doesn't. And then after that hour's up, maybe we can talk about some things we'd like to see improved with the with the system overall.
Well, it's a wide array of stuff, man. It starts with, I think, educating the player and the parents on the whole process itself from a legality standpoint. You know, like knowing the rules and knowing what you can, what you can't do. I think that's the baseline of it. And then, you know, you try to make sure you're telling them and explaining to them about how this really is about the best fit. It's not about, you know, yeah, everybody wants to go to Duke and everybody wants to go to Kentucky, but that might not be the right fit for you. And I think trying to make them understand that process of it, you know, more than anything. I think you also venture with that to say that with recruiting, you got to think about it, you know, like I say, everybody got this dream school in mind, but you are who recruits you. So if there's, you know, only Division II schools that are calling you, that means you're probably at the level of Division II. If they're all Division I high majors that are, you know, calling you, recruiting you, or what have you, then you probably are a Division I high major kid. And so I think having, you know, being honest with them and being truthful with them on that, even, you know, giving them what you think and what, like, and from my you know, standpoint of, you know, coaching at the high school level, then going to college and then coming back to high school, my perspective is so much more clear now because, you know, a lot of times, you know, people can say, well, kid, he's mid-major. Well, when I was at the mid-major level, I wanted a kid that was a tier up than a mid-major kid because I know that could make us that much better, you know, because a mid-major kid might be a low major kid, you know, so I always wanted to go one league up, so to speak. And so I think, you know, and I think that's the kind of like what most mid-majors would like to do. They like to recruit one level up or one league up at least. And so just, you know, making sure they understand that process of it and that, you know, it truly is a process because you got some kids that are enamored with the process. They got, you know, a ton of schools in their final list and all that stuff. And then you got some kids that just don't. I've had kids in both realms, you know, like Tariq Gilbert, who went to UConn. He took one visit and was done. He was like, I'm good, coach. He didn't want to, you know, go through that. But then I had another kid like Tony Parker, you know, he went through the whole process, had the, you know, the big show and everything. But that was just, you know, something that, you know, he wanted to do. So to each his own on that. But I think just being that to, you know, educate them on it. And then, you know, knowing your place as the high school coach, you got to know where you fit in with each, because each kid is different. Each situation is different. You know, you might have two thorough parents that understand the process, have been through the process, and your role might be diminished some, and you got to understand that, and you got to know where you fit in at and how you go in and add your parts. And then you might have a situation where, you know, it might be a single parent home and, you know, they don't have anyone to really guide them through that process. And you got to step in there and you got to be strong in that situation. And you got to be able to help them and guide them to make the best decision. So, and you're leaned on much more in that situation. So, you know, just being able to be flexible, I think, and just knowing, you know, the nuances of the whole process and how it, you know, it can go from, you know, a mountaintop high to a valley low, you know, in any second. So just making sure they understand that and being honest and truthful to them.
And what have you learned is sort of the best way to communicate as a high school coach to college coaches, you know, maybe vice versa? Is there a way that college coaches could do better to, you know, reach out to you guys for particular for players that they're interested in?
I just think that, like, I think my man Rob Bros, he works with us with USA Basketball. I take on his mentality because I think it's a lot of herd recruiting, meaning, you know, guys, you know, they don't really know about guys. And then when this one school that might be in their league taps them and say, hey, we're going to offer this kid, now all of a sudden every school in that league is almost like copycat recruiting, and it's not really recruiting or evaluating. And I think I think that, you know, that's something that, you know, again, you know, everybody does it, you know, and it's not like it's singled out because if Duke offers a kid, more than likely Kentucky's going to offer a kid or North Carolina's going to offer a kid. But I think true evaluation comes when you know, go through the process of trying to find that kid and trying to see exactly what that kid can do that will help your program be better. And again, you know, I just the her recruiting thing, it does bother me because I've had some kids recently that, you know, again, they should have already been recruited by some of these schools, but then when they find out, you know, a Siena offers them, oh, well, now we got to get involved, you know, like, and it's like, you know, do your homework. Just do your homework. That's what we're stressing to you. So again, that to me, that's one of the most prevalent things that I've seen.
Coach Jones, you want to jump in on your favorite lessons?
I mean, to me, I don't. Sharm said it perfectly. I mean, and obviously he can give the perspective from both sides of the fence. So, I mean, that's invaluable. There's not many guys like Sharm that can say they've done it on both sides. So, and especially at a high level. You know, in my experience, the only thing that I try to do is I empower the parents and the kid. You know, I tell them, like, you know, in this dynamic, I work for you. You know, my job is to not just coach and mentor these young men, but to help them get to the next level. So whatever it is that they want from me, you know, with my giving my perspective, I try to do for them. So, and I've had a little bit of everything. I've had kids who, you know, I found out that Markel Fultz was going to the University of Washington when everybody else found out that he was going to the University of Washington. And but I've also, you know, BJ Anya, I went through the entire recruitment process with him, even attended a couple of his school visits with him, and then everything in between. Some families want you to make the decision for your kid, which I will never do. And then some families are like, hey, we got it, you know, don't worry about it. So, you know, I empower the families, I empower the kid just to, hey, what you tell me, as long as you communicate with me what it is you need from me, we'll go through this process. And, you know, it's worked out for the most part. You know, we're blessed because, I mean, obviously we've got some very talented kids that schools want, but I think all in all, I've been very happy with the way each family has chosen their own individual way to handle their son's recruitment.
I think you both said it really well. I want to emphasize two things that you guys said. First of all, what Mike just said too, I will never, ever tell a kid where to go. I tell them right from the beginning, like, listen, I'm not going to ever have that on my conscience that you went to this D3 school and you hated it, right? So it's always going to be your decision, but we're going to help you with that process. And two, they just have to find somebody that they trust and try not to make that circle so big. I mean, it's you keep hearing people from, you know, every walks of life, and you got to understand what their motive is when they're doing it. And I think we're sometimes just people think of recruiting with the top players, like the you know, the D1 guys, and those sometimes are taking care of themselves. You know, we all probably have, I know I do, a lot of Division III type players or 2 type players that we've got to put a little bit of time and effort into. I think those guys, those coaches probably do a little more work than the D1 guys when it comes to recruiting, and they kind of recruit a little bit more outside of the box of what Sharm said, where it's not the herd recruiting as much as finding some kids that are, you know, can get it done in the classroom, that can maybe pay or get financial aid, and do a lot of research for that type of stuff. But empower your families to be as knowledgeable about the process. And just last night, one of my assistant coaches, Connor Donnellan, had a Zoom meeting with our seniors and juniors. We were all on a Zoom meeting and talking to the kids. He had a PowerPoint presentation about all of the steps that they should be looking for and what to take in the college process. And a lot of it is what they need to do, whether it's their grades, you know, getting with their counselors, whether it's starting to put film together that we can send out. But they have to be part of it, right? They have to put a little bit of work into it. If coaches aren't knocking on your door, and we talked about this a little bit last time, because of the college rules now, if they pass the rule where kids can transfer every year without sitting, and a good former player of mine's a college coach right now, and he said, you know, we don't really recruit high school kids anymore, you know, until they're seniors, or unless they're one of the top 50 or 100 kids in the country. We're going to start recruiting kids from other programs. And that's a shame, but that's reality. So people have to start putting in a little bit more time from our end. And the sad thing is a lot of families and a lot of kids go to people that tell them what they want to hear. So if they have and I'm not bad mouthing, AAU or whatever, but if they have like an AAU coach that wants to get them on their team, that coach may say like, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get you into, Duke or North Carolina just to get them on their team. And so that kid and that family starts listening to that coach, and they stop listening to you when you're kind of like, hey, you're probably a D2 guy, and they don't like that answer, then they may stop listening to you. So that's part of the problem with recruiting. And it's something that I just said before, like you got to find somebody that you trust. And if you don't, it's going to be a long, hard process, plain and simple.
For what it's worth, the one-time transfer vote was delayed at least for a year due to everything that's going on. So for better or worse. I think we're going to wrap up real quick, but while we were sort of on that topic, one of the things that's happened recently, and I'm not sure if you guys would have an opinion on this or not, but a couple, at least one and maybe two high-profile seniors has committed to play in a G League that the NBA is doing, and not to play on a team, but to play in a development program, and then have the ability to play in some G League games and I think other showcase like events. So the NBA seems to be coming up with a platform that would be, I think, more for the like the kids that go to Australia and play, the kids that go to other places overseas that are looking for an alternative to college. So you're talking really high level prospects, and kind of maybe keeping them in the States and keeping them around, NBA type coaching so that they can develop for that year before they're draft eligible. Do you guys have any thoughts, opinions, insight, into that? And do you think that option is something that, is good for the kids and something that might grow a little bit?
Initially, I almost want to take the wait and see approach. And obviously you got guys that are going to be quote unquote guinea pigs, and, there'll be the test drives or the test runs for this. As someone who played overseas, it's not glamorous in many situations. And, I was 21, 22 years old when I first went over there. And obviously I adjusted over the years that I've played. But, you're looking at sending 17, 18-year-old kids over there to play. And that's not an easy thing to do. So them having an opportunity to do that here is I just off the top of my head, I think it's a great thing. But again, let's see how this goes. Whether, the money is going to be enough, whether or not the developmental process is going to be good enough to get these guys ready. I'd like to see every kid get an education, but also realize that some kids are just, college is just not something that they want to do, that they're excited about doing. And you still want those guys to have an opportunity to make a living. And, not that they wouldn't otherwise, but at least this gives them something. So I want to wait and see, though. I want to see what happens with Jalen and with Isaiah Todd, and let's see what happens with those guys.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I think it's a wait and see deal. I am, haven't played overseas or anything like that, but I do think that is a huge adjustment for a 17, 18-year-old to be going across the waters like that. And, for them to be able to stay home. And then, it gives the NBA a way of, trying to keep those kids from going across seas, saying that we have what you need here. We've been fortunate enough, all three of us worked with, both of those kids. And, the talent level that they both have is really crazy. And so for them to be able to try to hone those skills a little bit, through the process of NBA development, it could be big for both of their games going forward. So, again, it's like Mike said, it's wait and see, but, it's something different. It's something exciting. That's, and it's something to give kids another option, you know. So I think, you know, with that being said, you know, it just makes everything becomes a little bit more, you know, interesting, I think, you know, even for the NCAA guys. Like, will the talent level start to tail down in the NCAA? You know, now you're going to have to really recruit. Now you got to really, you know, like back to what we were talking about, because all the top tier guys are gone. Now you got to try to weed through who's the next best wave of players if they're all going to the NBA, you know, developmental league to you know, for that year or what have you.
And I do think the one thing that this is going to do is, and I can't remember whether or not we talked about this before, but honestly, and you can almost see the trend coming back that way anyway, but junior college kids are now, I mean, it'll be like it was in the late 80s, early 90s with Larry Johnson and David Butler and those guys that wound up going to UNLV. Like, colleges will need JUCO kids because they can't have a team full of, like, everybody can't do what Kentucky's done the last couple of years. You know, and you can't do that at the mid-major level. You can't have a team of, you know, 7 freshmen every single year come in. So JUCOs are going to wind up becoming more attractive, and that's going to trickle down to high schools because, you know, for a while there, it was totally like, I don't want to go to a junior college. Like, why would I do that? I'd much rather go prep school route or what have you. And now I can see it changing. It's been changing for the last year or so. Kids like now, like, going to junior college is something that they're willing to do. I'll go and grind for 2 years, and then, you know, whereas I didn't have any scholarship offers as a senior, I will have, you know, many more opportunities after my second year at a junior college.
Great points. And I just want to say this. I used to be old school about everything. Like, you know, don't change the rules. This is ridiculous. But after, you know, being in this for so long, I'm all about kind of letting the kids do what they want. You know, like if a kid's good enough to go in the NBA, I think he should be able to go to the NBA right from high school, right? I think we're restricting these guys as far as the professional making money stuff, because I always come back to this. We're always adjusting our thoughts and rules on a couple of guys. Like, even they open this up, there's only 2 guys right now that I'm aware of that are doing this, right? So what's the, you know, we're not talking about the other 99% of the guys are doing it the normal way. They're going to college, they're playing, they're going through this stuff. I would like to see restrictions on transferring, just because I think if you commit to somewhere, you should give it everything you can to be at that place. But as far as professionals go, man, I just think they should be given as much opportunity as they can to go and when they want to go. If I'm going to be a top 10 draft pick after a sophomore year, then why shouldn't I be able to go do that? So that's the only thing I'll say about that. It's another avenue, like Mike and Sharm said. God bless them. If they're successful, great. You wish them nothing but the best. You hope it doesn't turn into, I mean, I always think about this, Mike and Sharm too. I think we've talked about this. How many guys out there have tried, have declared for the draft, have gone other routes that we never ever hear of?
Right.
And how many failures are there in this business? I mean,
but that's the one thing. The one thing that, at least from what I understand, and I think this is one of the coolest things about it, is for every kid that does do this program, the NBA or the G League or whatever, they've committed to paying for them to get a college degree. So no matter what happens with them, whether or not they make it to the league or not, they will get they will have the opportunity to get a college education whenever that is. And I think that's good.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. They're trying to do it right? The NBA stepping in and saying, similar to, I think baseball kind of does the same thing. Like, if, you know, I think we had a guy, Scott Mobile, who got you know, he signed a contract out of high school, but part of the contract was, whenever your baseball career is over, even if it's a year, we will pay for your college tuition, you know. And I think, you know, they were able to do some of that stuff. And I think basketball has just been so far behind in some of that.
Yeah, that's and I think that was sort of the wow about the recent news, was the amount of money that these kids are being offered through this program. And it seems really geared towards probably kids that would be, you know, lottery or top 15 type picks coming out of high school. So the thing is, you know, would it take somebody like a Zion Williamson out of college basketball maybe, and maybe that's sort of a negative thing because you don't have that superstar element. But then on the other side, the college basketball that a lot of us grew up with are sort of following teams over a 2 or 3 year window. So maybe you do have more program building that goes on at some of the big time schools, and that might drive interest. Who knows? But like you said, you guys said, wait and see.
All right, let's finish up here, Tim. We have, the first thing is this: we're going to do another podcast hopefully next week.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
But Tim is going to, and if you guys are okay with this, Tim is going to get some film from some USA games, and we'll kind of watch those films and kind of break it down and maybe talk about basketball wise, maybe what we did in practice to get ready for this team, kind of what plays we were doing, little philosophy, maybe put in the Chris Livingston 2-minute breakdown of
that's a good one. I saw Coach Jones' face drop initially there, so
Hey, Eric.
yeah.
Hey, as long as we don't have to talk afterwards, we're good.
As long as we don't have to what? You broke up.
Hey,
As long as we don't have to talk in the locker room afterwards, we're good.
what do you think about? I mean, just as an idea, like I use a lot of USA drills in my practices, and so I could share some of my practice film and let them see some of the drills that we do, so that people can kind of get a
That would be
awesome.
awesome.
Things we do, and I don't know, just something to.
If you got some cut-ups, you can email to me or something. We can do that. Yeah,
okay.
That'd be great.
Yeah, if Tim gets it all on one thing, then it makes it a lot easier. We can he can put some USA clips, maybe put some of your practice clips. We can kind of talk about that stuff. And if you have anything, Tim's my technology guy, so I'm not going to send him. You guys can.
It's gone so well so far.
Flan, I know you said so you wanted to get back to the parent thing.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming we won't do that today, but I do want to share this real quick. We started talking about parents and things like that. So I don't know if you guys can.
It's almost there.
Yeah, there you go.
Coming.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right. So that's Coach Wooten. He passed this out to our families at the opening dinner of every season that he coached. And that was basically his philosophy for them. And, he was he was the ultimate politician, diplomat, whatever you want to call it. Like, he delivered this message sternly enough without being a jerk, without being mean. And he went through each and every one of these 10, though. And he would explain to them, and sometimes he'd give stories or anecdotes to one of the commandments. But it was a pleasure to be able to sit back and watch him communicate this to his families. And, we use it occasionally now because there is just so much, we have so many returners every year, so we don't have to do this every year. But, and then I know Coach Wooten, closer to the end of his career, actually shared this with Ted Koppel on Nightline one evening for the nation to see. And he was just like, hey, as a parent, these are the rules that you have to follow for your kid to be able to be successful. So yeah, I'm sharing that with you guys. And if we want to maybe talk about that, and I've got, one thing I did, I'm not the smartest guy, but one thing I did was when I took over for Coach, I got his permission to keep every single file I possibly could. So I've got a ton of his things lying around the office at school. So, but this is one of the things that, I've found to be very valuable.
Okay, Mike, those are the nuggets we've been looking for. Nice job.
Save that for the end, man.
That would have been a.
You said we would come.
Well, I did want to get into the Jordan, the Last Dance, conversation too a little bit. There's so many things that we could talk about, but we're already at an hour and 10 minutes or something like that. Final thoughts on the takeaways from the Last Dance. Let's just get that real quick. Sharm, you've shared some on Twitter, but what's your biggest thing so far?
I just like the candid and authentic, piece of it, man. I mean, some of that stuff you wondered about, but you never really knew. And to kind of hear it now, it's kind of like, it's just kind of refreshing. But then also like with the younger guys, like my team, I talked with them about it, and like for them to see the elements that took for for you to even know who Michael Jordan was or know who the Bulls, it's great. I think it's a great teaching tool. My son, he's 8 years old, and like he wasn't really keen on wanting to watch it the first time, but I made him watch it. I said, and then after it started, he started getting into it, because he plays video games, so he's very familiar with like Michael Jordan and all that stuff. But this week he was like dead set, ready to go, like popcorn, everything was ready. And so that's what I'm glad for that. So he can kind of see that, you got to tell him those bad words. You can't use them right now.
Hey, that's life, man. That's life around basketball. Come on.
Right. He done heard me say a couple of them.
What do you got, Mike?
So Sharman knows this. So I actually got to play against the Bulls. So actually in Ohio, I signed as a free agent with the Indiana Pacers. So I played 2 preseason games. One game I got in, the other game I was just on the bench. The Dallas Mavericks was the first game, Jamal Mashburn and Jimmy Jackson. And then the second game was against the 72-10 Bulls before they went 72-10. So I played against Pippen, Jordan, and Dennis Rodman. Sean has heard me tell the story. I guarded Michael Jordan for 3 possessions. He did not score in any of the 3 possessions. I told Michael Jordan this himself, and the reason why he didn't score is because he didn't shoot it. But hey, it doesn't matter. He didn't score on me. But I keep looking for footage from the 95-96 season, seeing if maybe, one of their first games together they're going to show, because that was Dennis Rodman's first time with them. Dennis Rodman kept me from scoring a bucket. He was on the ground. He lifted his leg up and tripped me as I went in for a layup, so I wound up missing the layup. So that always dunk the ball. Don't lay the ball in no matter what. So lesson learned there. But no, it's been really cool, man. I agree with Sean. It's been so cool for the younger guys to be able to see, what us old guys have always talked about in terms of the competitiveness and how physical the game was and just everything like that. It's been pretty cool. And for me, it's must see TV if anything ever has been before.
Yeah.
Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I love the NBA and I love the current version of it. But what I really kind of miss about that era is the blood feuds and the rivalries. And I think like the Cavs and Warriors were sort of getting there until Durant stepped in the middle and kind of ruined that. But in today's NBA, you don't really have the just like hatred that you had for, Pistons, Bulls, Knicks, which maybe they'll get into, and some of those other rivalries where you had guys really going at it, and it took a lot for them to get past, whatever that hurdle was. I was a little also heartbroken reminiscing about that Cavs team and that it got broken up after, the shot with the stupid Ron Harper trade. So that was hard to live through. That was probably as an 8-year-old, that was probably my true first sports heartbreak moment of what has become very many over the years. And then the last thing I'll say is may we all be pulled out of a Las Vegas hotel room with Carmen Electra after a 3-day bender by Michael Jordan. So.
Hey, quick thing though. The part that got me on the Ron Harper, like when Jordan said that, they had Harper guarding him, and then all of a sudden they put Elo on him, and he was like, "Oh, okay,
right,
this is what we doing." And then Harper even went to the coach like, "I'm not guarding him." And that was like I would have known that. Like,
Harper's reaction was perfect. So I mean, that was just a great minute or whatever of. And I'm sick, Sharm, so I've actually gone back to YouTube and watched the end of that game. Like Elo makes a great layup to put the Cavs up by 1 with like 4 seconds left, but he turned his ankle on the play.
Horrible defense by Craig Hodges. Like
yeah, totally.
What the hell was he doing?
Right, and he was like on the high side on the inbounds or whatever. It was awful.
Yeah.
but Elo like turns his ankle because he crashed into the basket to make it. So he's limping back to the huddle on the timeout, and they still put him on Jordan. They're like, Lenny Wilkins is in the Hall of Fame, and I never will be. But you like, even just in hindsight, you're watching that, you're going, what the hell are you doing? But that's life as a
let's give Elo credit. He guarded
right there.
him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was right there. He's just.
If you want to blame somebody,
just,
blame Larry Nance.
That's who I blame. I blame Larry Nance was the help guy trying to deny Jordan, and he just let him catch the ball. So it was heartbreaking. I love it. I love it because I love the game back in the 90s. The Bad Boys of Detroit was the team I hated the most. Coming right off of my favorite all time, the Celtics and Lakers rivalry that I grew up with, turned right into the Bulls and the Cavs and the Pistons, that's what I grew up basketball being, and the physicality, the stories, showing my kids how great Jordan was, all of that. I thought Michael Wilbon, I think, said that after they showed the last episode about Rodman being gone, they kind of joked about it, that these reporters knew stories, but they weren't allowed to talk about them. So Wilbon said, like, I've known this story for like 30 years, but kind of like that oath of trusting everybody. I never said anything about it, but it's great to see these stories come out. So it's all cool. And I look forward to the next 6.
We'll talk about it next week, guys.
Exactly. Well, guys, once again, thanks for joining us. Again, congratulations on the Max Preps Top 100. Mike, May 15th is a little ways away, so we want a little bit more information on this show for the next time we get together, so we can prep it some more. We'll get some film together.
As soon as they send me a link for me to watch it, I'll tell you all about it.
Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you in a week.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks,
Run it
guys.
back.
Running back.
Running back.
What else we got to do?